Yes, podcaster office hours. First live stream for all my friends here. We've got a lot of fun things going on here. First thing I'm going to do is move this microphone out of my face. Hope you're all doing well. I've had an amazing week. If you're on any of the social media platforms, you'll know that the Poddex app is almost finalized. And I had some amazing interviews with different podcasters. I learned a lot this week. So what I want to offer you to do is, if you have any questions, feel free to hit them in the, you can just use your, here we go. Got some people coming in. Basement Lounge. What's up? Good to see you, Mike. 3D printer nut is excited. I'm excited as well. I hope you guys are having as good of a week as I am. Like I said, this is collaborative, so please ask questions and I will answer them. I've got a couple things prepared for you, but this can be an open platform to discuss. I can invite you on if you need specific help, and we're going to have essentially a cup of coffee together, whatever time. Let me know what time it is where you are. Right now it's noon, so I wolfed down my lunch and made a cup of coffee so I can come hang with you. So first things first. I learned this week that there truly is a 1% of podcasters, and there's 99% of the rest of us. And the 1% of podcasters are the people that are doing 30,000 downloads plus a month or a week. And the rest of us all are getting an average of about 150 downloads. Now, the people that are doing 30,000 are making anywhere from $3,000 to $6,000 a month in advertising and affiliates and all these things. I have a couple clients that do have this going on. And I wanted to just share with you that my goal here is to bridge the gap between that 1% and you guys. So it's completely possible in 2020 to have a loyal fan base, to make money on a podcast, and due to everything that's going on in the world, COVID-19, all the things that are happening, this is a huge pivot point. You might remember, if you're old enough, 2008, there was a real estate bubble. And you might remember that there's been all these things along the way that have been pivot points for opportunity. So when things change, there's an opportunity to change with it and to dominate. So based on some conversations I've had with people at Spotify and Google, they are predicting that in the next 5 years, that every single person and every single brand is absolutely going to have a podcast. So if you're podcasting now, getting your feet wet, learning your craft, developing your strategy, you're going to be ahead of the game, which is a really great thing. So how do we grow from the hundreds to the 30,000s, right? We need to focus on really figuring out what our voice is. And I don't know if anybody watching, do you have a perfect pitch? Do you have a perfect pitch for your podcast? Like, you press the elevator door button and it opens and Joe Rogan's in there, or Oprah's in there, or the person that you'd love to sit on a plane next to for 10 hours. And for some reason they say, oh, I heard you have a podcast. What's it about? Do you have a very specific elevator pitch that will allow you to have somebody figuring out exactly if your podcast is for them or not? If you do, I'd love to see what it is in the comments, excuse me. And this is going to be key for figuring out how to pitch yourself to guests, to people on the street, to companies, things like that. You don't have to be everything to everyone. You don't have to reach critical mass. And there's really not a direct way to have this overnight success. People look at Joe Rogan and they think, oh my gosh, overnight success, but he did 10,000 episodes before he got $110 million from Spotify. Okay. So it is a slow build. This is a marathon, but we're at the beginning of a huge boom. Okay. And I've been studying and experimenting, and something I wanted to share with you today is, what is your level of experimentation with your podcast? do you just do the same thing over and over again, or are you actually potentially experimenting with different things and trying things out to push the boundaries of what a podcast is? Basement Lounge. It's discouraging to see Spotify paying people like Kim Kardashian to make a podcast while it's hard enough, like people like us are having a hard enough time getting started. And that's a good example of the 1%, right? That's an example of somebody who is actually really good for podcasting. So Kim Kardashian having a podcast is going to bring more people to podcasting. And it's not actually a bad thing. And Kim Kardashian is sort of a bad example because she's one of the most famous people in the world. So having Spotify pay her is sort of a no-brainer. Let's see what we got here. Basement Lounge. I know, right? The Weekly Encouragement barely has 25 listeners. Okay, so 3D Print Nut, The Weekly Encouragement is your podcast? Oh, hey, Joe. Not sure who Joe is, but Emotions, exploring the hidden emotions that motivate artists, entrepreneurs, and activists. Cool. So this gives me a good idea. If I'm interested in art, entrepreneurship, activists, I know that this podcast would be for me. So not a bad pitch. I think it could be improved a little bit. Oh, hey, Joe Rogan. Okay, gotcha. That makes a lot more sense. Oh, okay. So how can we improve this? Do you want feedback on how to improve this pitch, John? Who is your target audience? Is it someone who wants to be an artist or an entrepreneur or an activist? Or is it somebody who is interested in just behind the scenes of something like that? That's something I need to know to help you craft the greatest pitch in the world. Let's see, we got another one here. Basement Surge is a general discussion podcast out of Brooklyn, New York. John and Frank talk about everything from being a dad to playing video games together. They talk about anything and everything that interests them. That's our pitch. All right, I like this too. Here's my strategy with the comedy podcast, the Everything for Everyone podcast, because there's a lot of those out there, which is awesome. And there's a really great way that you can use the exclusion method in your pitch. So if you change that to the Basement Surge is a podcast that we talk about anything and everything, and if you hate blank, you'll love our show. So by telling people what they will hate, like you can gather people together in a group that actually don't like something as a description. So a comedy podcast, for example, let's just say it's a comedy podcast for everything, everyone and everything. You could just simply say, this is a comedy show, and if you think Kanye West is the most ridiculous person on earth, you'll love this show. Or you'll hate the show. If you hate Kim Kardashian, you'll love this show. And so what that does is the people that may want to make fun of Kim Kardashian are more likely to listen to you. It's very difficult to tell somebody that your show's about everything for everyone. And the best way to grow that kind of show is to specifically use trending topics, searching hashtags, to make sure that every episode that you have out has something that's currently going on in the world in the title, so you start to rank for things like that. But you can use the exclusion method. I'll use an example as like a band, right? If you're in a band and you're like this heavy metal rock band, it's very hard to say, yeah, we're a heavy metal rock band. That doesn't really describe, because there's so many different kinds of heavy metal. But if you said, like, if you hate Pink Floyd, you'll love our band. If I hate Pink Floyd, I'm more likely to go check out what it is just to see what it is. Does that make sense? All right, people who want to get more in touch with their emotions. All right, John. All right, so let's go back to your pitch. And I just got to say, I got to give a shout out to John from the Basement Surge, because he gave me access to his vodcasting course, and he got me all set up with this setup right here. And I do think, we'll talk about this in a minute about live streaming, but I do think live streaming could be the future for podcasters. So I want to give him a shout out because that course is coming out and I think it's going to be huge. So Hey, Joe, I've got a podcast called Emotions, exploring the hidden emotions that motivate artists, entrepreneurs, and activists. And he says, let's see. People who want to get more in touch with their emotions. Okay. So I would actually put that in the pitch. The podcast is simply called Emotions, right? So maybe the pitch is that my podcast is called Emotions, and we dive into the hidden, what did he say? Sorry, there's a lot of comments coming in here. We dive into the underlying drive that motivates us and getting in touch with our emotions to thrive as artists, entrepreneurs, and activists. Okay, so then, because hidden emotions is tough, it doesn't really describe it. But if you're telling me you're going to motivate me and you're telling me you're going to help me get in touch with my emotions as an artist, I think that's a better pitch. All right, I hope that was helpful. All right, when will the course be available for the live stream, John? That's a good question. I think he told me September, but I don't want to quote on him on that. Okay, the elevator pitch, the more specific, the better. Yes, so you want to be, okay, so let me go back to the pitch here. With a pitch, you're really basically qualifying somebody to either listen to your podcast or not. And Garland, you're in my mastermind group, so I know you and I've talked to you, and John's in the mastermind group, and we've been talking about how to carve out a niche and grow a show, right? So Garland's show is going to be around WWE, right? So this show, basically, anybody who's not like obsessed with WWE or interested in WWE, they're out the window. We don't want them. So when I'm telling somebody about my podcast, I want to specifically tell them my show is about WWE, and I actually make predictions on storylines of all the matches. I don't know if that's the right word, matchups, SmackDowns in WWE. So follow along and see if I am correct in my predictions and see if you know the story about what's going on, something to that effect. And then me as a person who doesn't like WWE, I don't want to listen to that podcast. And that's okay, because we don't want everybody. The pitch is actually to qualify, is this of value to somebody? And when going back to this whole, like, it's everything for everyone, it doesn't convert, right? It doesn't make sense to have, what does your food taste like? Well, it tastes like all food. Okay. That's why restaurants are in categories, right? Fusion, Asian fusion, Mexican, right? Then I know, like, oh, I'm going to get a burrito or a taco. So you want to kind of think of like your podcast as food, right? Food for thought. And you want to make sure that you're telling somebody if your podcast is for them or not. And it's okay if it's not for them. And if it is for them, they're going to know right away and they're going to want to listen. And that's the whole point of the pitch. The point is, it's going to be difficult to grow a podcast that's everything for everyone. So by having some type of specific audience in mind, and I can go back to John Emotions, which I love that name. You should change it to John Emo. Your target audience is people who are, I don't want to say woke, but like forward-thinking people that know that emotional-based decisions drive art, entrepreneurship, and I forgot what the third thing was. And that's a person like me. I am a person who is emotional, and I'm interested in all those things. I'm an artist, I'm an entrepreneur. So that lets me know right away, okay, cool. This is going to be something that's like a mindset podcast, emotional mindset for artists, entrepreneurs, right? And anybody who's not an artist or an entrepreneur, they might not want to listen to that podcast, which is great. All right, Jason says, I feel like my pitch is easy. We visit breweries and interview the people that make the beer happen. Perfect. Okay. So it's basically like a backstage brewery podcast. It's very easy. And if you like beer and you're interested in microbrews or breweries and finding out the philosophy of the people that are actually making and crafting that beer, you're going to want to listen to that podcast. So I don't drink, but I used to love beer. So when I was drinking, I think I would have definitely known that that podcast was for me. This is a really good example of something that's like, this is it. We visit breweries and we interview the people that make beer happen. So that's a really great example, Jason, of a podcast pitch. Okay. I kind of got off topic here with a podcast pitch. If you need help with your podcast pitch, go ahead and comment. And if you have any specific questions that you want me to answer, please put them in there. This is a safe space for you, and there's no silly questions. All questions are good questions. So I've been thinking a lot about experimentation. And I was talking about this earlier and I got sidetracked. I apologize. The whole world has changed. And I think the way that people are consuming podcasts have definitely changed. And I've been experimenting with making shorter episodes to see if I can keep people the entire episode. And my strategy for making those episodes is I pick 3 things that I want to share in that episode and I riff off those ideas. I never script. I just keep 3 bullets in front of me and I'm going to weave in between those. Anybody who's in the Interview Secrets course has seen this whole planning session, but that's the idea that I'm going to use. I'm going to literally take a Post-it note and say, these are the 3 things that I want to make sure that I talk about in this episode. And typically there's something that's going to help my audience. My podcast is Podcast Therapy. It's helping podcasters become the 1% and keep their head in the game because podcasting is very lonely. So if you're a podcaster looking to grow, you're going to want to listen to this show, right? That's my pitch. So long form interviews have always been the standard and longer form episodes, but I do think that even based on my own consumption of podcasts that I love, I'm not listening to as many podcasts, but I am consuming more of the shorter ones. So I want to know what you guys are experimenting with. And I have a couple different ideas I want to share with you, and you can use these ideas or you can not use them. Some people don't like to experiment. They like to stay in their lane, which is totally cool. So I've been experimenting with the shorter episodes, and I'm going to start to vary different lengths and see which of those are actually getting consumed the most. But for right now, it's like 10-minute episodes. And if you guys ever saw that ad for Quibi, it was like a, I think it failed already, but there was a Super Bowl ad for this app called Quibi that did like 10-minute shows. The show could not be longer than 10 minutes. It was vertical video and it was on your phone. And Quibi really made me think about the way people consume everything. We consume minute-long videos on Instagram, and we consume 26-minute sitcoms, and we consume, all different shorter attention span like pieces. So does that apply to podcasting? Can you make micro content, micro episodes, a 5-minute episode, a 10-minute episode, all surrounding one topic and just like punch your people in the face with just like value? So like get into the episode, tell them what they need to know. And if you're a comedy show, it's just one trending topic. It's whatever the trending topic of the day is, right? And sometimes the trending topics are not good, like Kenosha and all the things that are going on in the world, but you hit them with one thing and then you move on. And then the person's able to take that content in and digest it and basically move on to the next thing, because right now I'm not driving anywhere and I'm not flying anywhere and I'm not consuming as much content, but I am consuming more of the shorter episodes. So I'd love to know what you think. Billy Thorpe, my man, he loved the Interview Secrets course. That's awesome. I really appreciate the compliment. You can find that at secret.poddex.com if you're interested in learning how to take your interview game to the next level. Nigel, I need help with my pitch. All right. So why don't you tell me what your podcast is? Why don't you give me your pitch and then we'll work on it here. Have you ever given thought about having a podcast clinic where people can submit their shows for some general feedback and guidance? Absolutely. So I've got a couple things going on. I'm going to start doing those here so we can do your podcast next if you want. I have a private mastermind group where I have 12 people. I have 12 seats available where we work one-on-one together to basically improve your podcast. But I will make a podcast clinic form to fill out, and I will review your podcast for you, Mike. What else do we have here? The course, John's course is going to be available at the end of September. It's called From Podcast to Vodcast. Very cool. It's really great. And he set me up with this whole thing, and I would have never been able to do this without him. All right. All right, no specific questions. So in my private Facebook group, I believe her name is Sharia or Sharia, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that. She was asking about Instagram and how to grow her Instagram. Okay, so I wanted to address that because I think that one of the hardest problems, and I don't know if you suffer from this as well, let me know, but the hardest part of being a podcaster is that you have to come up with content, you have to create that content, and you have to spread the content everywhere. And it's overwhelming. And when I started Poddex as a company, I literally made an Instagram account because I like doing Instagram the most. So if you've ever seen my Facebook account, it's like, it used to just be nothing. And if you ever saw my Twitter account, it used to just be nothing because I spent no time on it. And I had told myself, I'm just going to focus on one thing and grow an audience in one place. So what I want to do is give you a get out of jail free card that you do not have to be everywhere and doing everything on social media. I want you to spend time focusing on one platform to grow your audience. And I think that Instagram is one of the best ones for podcasters because it lends itself to you being able to do so many different things with it. First of all, stories, behind the scenes, all that stuff. But second of all, you can post an audiogram. You can post a quote from your show. You can post that the episode is live. You can post pictures of yourself, and you can do a lot of interacting. So I recently spoke at PodFest Virtual Summit. We set the world record for the most podcasters at a virtual summit. And if you were there, you're also a world record holder. So cheers. And one of the things I shared was a mini training on how to grow your Instagram account. So I want to share this information with you right now, in case you missed it. So here's the deal. Everybody wants followers because they think that followers equal activity, right? And you can go buy 10,000 followers right now. I see people do it all the time. And there's a really easy way to figure out if somebody's bought their followers because they don't get any comments. But the way you're going to grow your Instagram account is a few ways. One, you have to have generally good content. You have to share about yourself. You need to make sure that people know that your podcast episodes are going to bring them value. And you have to interact with people. So Poddex is a perfect example, and I'm not here to plug Poddex, but it's a perfect example of something that you can do to give your audience a soapbox to stand on and interact with you. Just posting a picture of you at the beach is not engaging. It's like, look how cool I am, right? And that's great. You're at the beach. I'm happy for you. But I have no way to interact with you on that unless I'm going to comment on your appearance or like maybe I know what beach you're at, but it's not really an engaging piece of content. But asking people a question and then giving them the opportunity to answer and give their voice is a way to get engagement. Now, the algorithm, we can all blame the algorithm for the algorithm doesn't show my posts and this, and this, but the algorithm's just looking at a few things. It's looking at how many people are interacting with you and how many people are liking your posts. So what I want to mention to you is start giving your audience things to comment on. It doesn't have to be a question. It can be a choose your adventure option for your podcast. Who should I interview next? What topic should I start next? Which podcast art do you like better? We all love to be behind the scenes, right? We all like to know a rock star before they're a huge rock star. I've heard so many stories like, oh yeah, I knew Bono before he was big. We all want to have that story, and people want to have that story with you. They want to grow with you, right? They want to be a part of the journey, not just in the little sidecar on the motorcycle. They want to be riding bitch, you know? Excuse my language. So give them a chance to interact with you and be a part of the show. Now, you know I have a podcast, the podcast Facebook group where I have my posse, right? I've created a community of people, and I genuinely care about your success, which is why I'm here. I could be doing anything right now, but I want to be here with you because I want to grow your podcast with you, right? So that's one way, just simply through posting questions, polls, give them an opportunity to participate. Which t-shirt do you like better? If you ever notice Poddex, I'll always ask you, do you want this stuff? Because I'll find out very quickly. Do you want this hat? You don't? Okay, then I'm not going to make it and move on to the next thing. And I'll try to make something else that you might want, right? But I want you to be a part of the decision-making process. This isn't just a one-person decision-making train. So keep that philosophy in your mind as far as your podcast goes. Now, the second way, and this is key right here, okay? What I'm going to tell you right now is literally gold for growing your account, specifically Instagram, is when you get a new follower, you need to actually interact with them. So every second I get, every new follower I get, I go in. This is exactly what I do. I look at their profile and I like a couple of their posts, okay? I try to find out what their name is. People's names are the sweetest word in the English language. Always use people's names if you can. I find out their name and I find out what they're all about. And here's what I do. I go into the DMs and I press the little microphone button at the bottom, okay? And the reason I'm going to use audio is because A, I'm a podcaster. B, you can't see what it says. It's a mystery. They want to see what that audio message is. And 3, I could send a video, but if you don't have your audio on your phone, you miss the audio. And it's embarrassing to say, I'm sorry, I missed your video. And then you have to do it again. They're ready for audio. The volume's on. What is this audio message from this guy? And I literally will say this to them. I'm just going to use anybody here as an example. I'll use John as an example. Hey, John, it's Travis from Poddex. I just wanted to say thank you for following me on Instagram. I just checked out your page, and I'm really excited to find out more about the Basement Surge podcast and video gaming and all the things that you're doing. It looks super cool. I hope you're having an awesome day. That's it. I don't talk about my podcast. I don't talk about Poddex. I don't talk about products, services, courses, nothing. I express general interest in them. Now, there's a few things that are going to happen. 1, they'll say thank you. They'll thank me for the audio message, which is crazy. They're thanking me for interacting with them. 2, they'll reply. And then I have a dialogue. Then I can ask them a question. Hey, I'm just wondering, who would you want to sit next to on a 10-hour flight if you could sit next to anybody, right? Now we're creating this conversation. It has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with them, right? And now this person's intrigued because they're getting hit with automated DM messages and all this crap spam stuff that people do in the podcasting world. They're like, I get these messages all day long where it's like this huge diatribe. Check out my podcast, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to do that. I'm tired of being spammed, right? Everyone's tired of being spammed. But if somebody sent me a message and said, hey, Travis, I'm super stoked on Poddex, I am going to respond. I am going to look at who this person is, and I'm going to probably have a conversation with them. And that's the key to growing an Instagram account or any Facebook or any account, is interacting, not just like putting the content out and then just like waiting. You actually have to interact. And you can just ask people a question at the end of that too. You could say, hey, I'm super excited to connect to you. Hey, I was just wondering, what's your favorite kind of ice cream? Okay, you don't need a pod deck for that question. You all have questions in the back of your head that you can ask anybody, and then you're creating a conversation. Now, the other thing you need to do, and Shariah is in the basketball world, right? You have to find pages that are in your niche. So if it's John with video games, or if it's the other John with emotions, or I know Billy does a lot of like printing t-shirts and stuff like that. You have to go to those audiences, and you have to start participating without promoting in those. You have to like posts and comment on posts and interact with other comments on the post, and be a person. We forget that there's like 2 ears and 2 eyes and a mouth and a heart on this other side of every phone, because we're just like, we're just grinding. But if you slow down a little bit and tap the brakes, tap the brakes, and instead of trying to get like 100 people to like your page a day, like focus on 5 people, make 5 new friends, right? I've made so many connections through just the Poddex Instagram account of real people that are now my friends, because I genuinely want to meet people and interact. And you create a loyal fan base of people that know that you're not just this like spam robot, like trying to suck up all the love in the world, but you're actually trying to give love. So if that makes any sense, please let me know. Use the audio message functionality. I went from 0 to 3,700 followers, which are real people. I don't buy stuff. I don't follow bots and all that crap. It's real people. And most of them, I know stuff about them because I've asked and I've talked to them. And I feel like that puts me in a position to where when I do ask, when I do have the opportunity to pitch them, when they come to me and say, oh yeah, my podcast is this and this, I'm like, cool. I think that sounds great. I'm going to check that out. And then maybe they'll say back, do you have a podcast? Yeah, it's actually for podcasters, to help podcasters. With my pitch, I'm telling them if my thing is for them or not. And then they can make the decision whether they want to check it out. But instead of just cold zapping them with a DM, which is abrasive and gross, now they already have a good feeling about me because I'm a real person, and maybe they'll check out my podcast. So let me know in the comments if that actually helps you at all. I got a couple more comments coming in. I'm sorry, I just went on that tangent. All right. Let's see. We got some really good comments in here. I'm going to rip through these. Okay, so can you help me get more listeners? We are struggling. Okay, this all comes back to the main point that I was making, is that you have to define who your podcast is for. Until you know that, then you're basically just like throwing stuff at the wall and hoping it sticks. So weekly encouragement, your podcast should be for people who are looking for a quick hit of motivation. Look up Donald Miller, the Story Brand, right? He sends me an email every day of just like a 5-minute blip of like something I can do better, right? So go to the Jack Canfields of the world and The Secret and the, I'm trying to think of all the books I have here that are like self-help. All the people who write self-help books, go to their communities, go to their Facebook groups, interact with the people. Because the Weekly Encouragement Podcast, I know exactly what it is. You're going to give me weekly encouragement, right? So if I need that, which I do, I know that that's something that interests me. So all you have to do is start putting yourself in those places, and maybe even use that Instagram hack where you start reaching out to people and saying like, hey, do you need weekly encouragement? After you've, interacted a little bit, do you need weekly encouragement? If you do, I give you blank every single week. Also remember, this is a slow build. It's a marathon. If you get overnight success, you're likely to crash and burn. You want to slowly build your audience, okay? I think episodes are like songs. Some are long, some are shorter, good with hooks, and more memorable. Very well said. Spreading the word about you at Toastmasters International. Awesome. I want to try a Toastmasters because I say a couple words too much, and I've been working on public speaking, and I've got a weird voice, and I just really want to do that. So I'm glad you reminded me that that exists. Ryan says, my pitch is we are nerd culture where we talk all things nerdy, from movies, TV shows, comics, and more. We are here to embrace the nerd in you. It's a great pitch, right? You've created and everybody watching, check this out. Let's break this down. Nerd culture is the name. So like nerd is a like segment of people, right? You either identify as a nerd or you don't, right? So automatically there's an audience there that people are going to identify with or not, okay? And I'm saying nerd in a good way. It's like nerdy stuff, okay? Okay, so we talk about all things nerdy, but then they tell me what the all things are, right? Ryan's telling me we talk about all things nerdy, from movies to TV shows, comics, and more. So then I know, okay, I like movies, I like TV, I like comics. So you know that that's sort of the niche under nerdy. Like it could be nerdy like tech stuff. It could be nerdy, whatever. And we're here to embrace the nerd in you. So like this is basically an invitation at the end of this pitch. We want to embrace the nerd. You're part of our culture. You're part of our crew, right? So I really like that a lot, Ryan. Very well done. All right. Looks like you got some pod decks too. All right. Pod decks are fun, man. And that's a great way. Here's another great way. If you want to grow your Instagram account, take your pod decks, go live on Instagram Live and ask your audience questions. You'll get so much engagement and you become this fun person where you're giving your audience the chance to engage. People want to say stuff. Have you ever noticed that like people are rabid about commenting on things? All right, so Billy asks, when interviewing, do you weigh in on the subject after the guest answers a question to create conversation, or do you acknowledge and either ask a follow-up question and move on to your next question? This is a really good question. Okay, too many interviewers are using guests as a way to share their own stuff, okay? So here's my advice. When I interview somebody, I try to make it all about them. But if I do have a good story or a good piece of content to weigh in with, I will comment on that because a conversation is a two-way street. So you do definitely want to pop in and talk, but with the idea that the interview guest comes first, right? So the interview guest is in the spotlight and I'm sort of like the producer in behind the scenes. So I'll either do one of two things. If something is relevant, I will pop in and mention it because it might take me to the next question. It might take me somewhere where I want to take them. So definitely weigh in. Just don't make, like, I've listened to too many podcasts where the interview guy talks for 15 minutes before I even hear the guest. And that's no good. So if you know anything about, well, you took the course, you know, I don't do any small talk on my podcast. It's a complete waste of time. So where are you from? Every podcast starts out the same these days. And if you do this, this is okay. I think we met in August. No one cares how you met. Unless you met like through some amazing story, nobody gives a shit. You just need to go right into it. Like, Billy, you're a master at creating t-shirts and merch and all this stuff. What's a mistake people make when they order their first t-shirt, right? Get right into it. Don't waste any time. All right. We got more pitches here. Nigel, my man. I like that profile pic. Looking good. My pitch is it's time to lock and load to Truth Out the Bag podcast, where we give you relevant conversations that challenge, educate, and inspire you to be a better you and transform your block, hood, your community, and the world at large. Okay. So this is good, but can be improved. So the Truth Out the Bag podcast, I think, it seems like you're doing some conversations about making people better. So in some form, transforming their lives and helping your community. So maybe the Truth Out the Bag podcast is relevant conversations to challenge, educate, and inspire you to be a better you and transform your community, right? Maybe just taking a few words out. And specifically, like, who is it that you want to help, though? And that's what I would like to put in here. Like, Truth Out the Bag, like, Podcast Therapy is a podcast for podcasters, right? And I know that's very, like, meta and, like, basic, but Truth Out the Bag podcast is a podcast for who specifically? Think about that and hit me up in the comments. You're doing amazing things for the community. Thank you, Ride with Rome. I appreciate it. My goal in life is to help as many podcasters, like I said, be the 1%, make the money, optimize, and defeat all the new podcasters coming in. Okay? All right. On air light is a working model. Please turn it on. Yes, sir, it is. I'm tied into my headphones here. And I can tell you this, I can turn it on, but it's going to be too bright for the camera. Okay, so I'll do that right now. Just give me 1 second. So the LEDs are very bright and it looks much better in the dark, but we do have on-air lights available. If that's something that's interested you, just head over to poddex.com/onair, I believe. Okay. Let's see here. A good interview, I believe, is 70 guests, 20 hosts. I would completely agree with that, except we're missing 10% there, right? So maybe like 75, 25. That's a good point. All right, how much of an impact does it make when you get the interviews with special guests on your podcast? It's a good question. So if you get a good interview, it's going to obviously be really good for searchability. And if people are searching for that person, it's going to be very good. I never expect guests to share with their audience. So if I get a really good guest, like I just interviewed somebody from Google yesterday, I think they're going to share the episode, but I don't count on it, right? I don't count on my guest sharing as much as my guest giving my audience crazy value, okay? It's good, but I don't focus on it too much. I want to have conversations that help my audience. I don't care about anybody else. My audience are my people, and I want to help them. So you can see there's 9 people on this thing, and I want to help you 9 people. I don't care about all the other people that aren't here. Okay? All right. Holy hell, that is bright. Yes, it is. It's an LED light that is very bright. Okay. John's getting a light. Yeah, good for you, bro. I like it. I like your hat in that picture, too. Okay, Garland says, you helped me a ton yesterday. It was only our first call. Can't wait for the next one. Awesome, yeah. So Garland is part of the Hot Seat. If you go to hotseat.poddex.com, I'm running a private mastermind where we do group calls and we do one-on-one calls where I specifically help you with your podcast. Garland is about to be the next big thing in podcasting. So if you need help with podcasting, check it out. I'm always here to help you anyway. Okay, looks like I've run through most of these comments. Anybody have any other specific questions? We just scheduled our first few episodes. What should we be doing to make sure we have a solid launch? Great question. Okay. So my launch plan goes like this, specifically goes like this. I release a trailer. So I submit a trailer to Apple, and it takes 72 hours to publish. And I do that about a week before I actually really want to launch the podcast. Now, the trailer is simply your pitch, right? It's who you are, what you do, and why someone should listen to your podcast, or who you are, who you're for, and what you're going to do for people in their podcast. So I already know that you're interviewing, what's the name of a brewer, a master brewer, right? And all that does is it guarantees that my podcast is approved on Apple. All the other platforms, it's very easy to get approved right away. So once I have that approval, I'm going to go to all my friends and family and anybody I can and say, hey, listen, I'm launching this new podcast. It would mean the world to me if you could go subscribe, rate, and review, right? Review with your heart. Don't write any wacky stuff. Just like, that'll be great. And then I schedule that episode, my first episode, and I usually launch with about 2 hours of content. So probably 3 episodes. I schedule that out for like X day. Let's say it's Tuesday, September 1st. And then when people arrive on Tuesday, September 1st, I know for a fact it's going to be on Apple. So people aren't going to go, I can't find it, because it's going to have time to catch up to the search and all the other things, propagation. And then when they get there, there's already reviews. It's social proof. There's already things happening. And then I hit them with 3 episodes. Typically, like the first episode, which is like maybe a longer form introduction of what's going to happen. The second is maybe like a really great interview. And the third is some type of bonus piece of content where it's like maybe a shorter episode, the history of beer. And then if they like the podcast, they have enough content to consume and they don't have to wait too long. And then from there out, I'll just do weekly. But initially, I like to do that. Now, I'll also run a contest for reviews. And in that first week, people can write a review, screenshot it, DM me, put it on my Facebook page. And then I have some type of prizes like the books I like, or pod decks, or a microphone, or headphones, or something like that. Something that you can afford that's manageable, but give people an incentive to actually review. And reviewing is free, so they don't really have to do anything. So I hope that helps you, Jason. I like what you're working on. All right. Can't wait to use Pod Decks on my Toastmasters creating a podcast project. Awesome. Is there a way to join those calls? Yeah, so the Hot Seat is a private thing. You just go to hotseat.poddex.com. I can tell you that there's only 6 seats left. The whole thing kicks off on September 1st. So what we're going to be doing is this is what we're going to be doing in the Hot Seat. We're going to have a group call. Everybody gets a chance to talk and say what their current issue is, right? And we're all going to collaborate and help. And then you get an individual call with me for an hour where I will specifically help you tackle whatever you need to tackle regarding podcasting. Everybody's doing something different. So I have John, who's launching the vodcast course. So he's taking his podcast and he's monetizing it. Then I have Garland, who's launching a brand new show from the ground up, and we're going to do this the right way. And so I'm helping him through each step of the way. We have other people that are trying to start podcast editing agencies. So I run a podcast editing agency called Podcast Buddy. You can check it out at podcastbuddy.co. I've launched over 100 podcasts for clients, and I'm making over $10,000 a month editing podcasts. and I can show you how to start your own podcast editing agency. So I have a couple people that are learning how to build a podcast editing agency, because podcast editing is becoming very popular due to the fact that there's more podcasters. So I teach you how to set up the business, how to set up your website, how to automate everything, so you don't have to go into folders and things like that. But that's sort of, I can help with anything that you need with podcasting. Or if you want to monetize somehow, we can develop a strategy for you. All right. How big is this is good. How big of a factor is graphic design for social media posts? It's a huge factor. Okay. So going back to Instagram, you need to have good content. And you may not be a graphic designer. I'm not a graphic designer. So I understand that it's not always easy. Here's what I would do. I would go to canva.com and sign up for a free account. They have pre-made Instagram post, Facebook post, YouTube card templates. You can change everything. You can change the picture, the color, but they have designers pre-make these like really nice looking things that you can augment to fit your podcast. And so I'll use that a lot because I'm not a designer. I don't have the like designer eye, but I can augment something to look exactly how I want it. So for example, today I posted 4 things that can make you have better interviews in a slider post. I use slider posts because Instagram likes when people interact with things. Other posts, I just use Canva and I put in an image and I figure out what I want to say, and it looks good. So, I mean, it looks good enough, right? I'm not a designer, but I can't hire a designer. So if you go to Poddex, there's somewhat of a theme on my page. I usually give a tip, like a mini tip episode. I usually have a question of the day. I usually have a picture of the product. I usually share that I'm on a podcast. I try to share a picture of myself every once in a while. Even though I am not confident about that, I still want people to know that there's a person behind it. You can't just post memes. You can't just post audio. You need to mix it up. You need to have a variety. So when someone arrives, it's not just a stack of audiograms, right? So you want to mix it up. So you just think of 5 categories that you can do. Maybe it's like the the nerdy movie quote of the week, letting people know there's a new episode coming. I don't know, 5 ideas. And then you just filter through those 5 ideas over and over and over again. But it creates a situation where there's different kinds of content that is better looking than just like all the same thing. Nigel needs to get in the hot seat. Hey man, I got 6 seats left and I'm capping it out at 12. You can stay as long as you want, but once it's full, it's full. So it's totally up to you. I'm not here to sell you a hot seat, but it is going to be awesome. Jason, what advice do you have for showing up in podcast searches and Apple Podcasts for terms that relate to your show? Great question, Jason. Very good question. Excellent question. Show notes. Not show notes. Well, show notes, yes. Show titles. So you need to make sure that keywords are listed in your title. So I don't know what your show is about, but if you are, let's just say Jason, let's make up something for Jason. What does Jason do? Or maybe he can tell us. Jason looks like he is like a high-level entrepreneur coach. So I'm just going to say he's a high-level entrepreneur coach. So in those episode titles, let's say you want to rank for automating your business. You would want to have something in the title that has to do with automation. And then, of course, you want to use keywords in your show notes. So when I write show notes, I generally pick about 5 keywords, and I'll make sure that those are all in the show notes. And then when Apple crawls all that data, you'll start to rank more. How do I sign up? hotseat.poddex.com. Okay, it's going to be hard work, but it's going to be fun. It's going to be awesome, Garland. All right, social media, socialistics. Okay, cool. Jason, thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to make up a thing for you. So social media, I mean, I presume that you're helping people grow their social media accounts or strategize, things like that. So whatever the topic is, the keywords that relate to that topic, I like to use questions that my audience is answering. So let's use social media. How do I make audiograms for my podcast? That would be a title that I would put into Apple Podcast or everywhere, because people are searching for questions that they're trying to solve. So that's going to make sure that they know that I'm going to solve that question for them. And then in the actual show notes, I would have outward links to like places that make audiograms and the word audiograms and all the keywords that are going to play. And it does take time to rank, but if you do it enough, Apple favors that. All the platforms favor it. YouTube favors it, all that stuff. So just focus on making sure your titles are airtight. Like I just pretty much guess for the most part that no one reads my show notes. So I don't, aside of the 5 keywords I'm going to throw in there, I don't spend a heck of a lot of time on it because I don't read show notes myself. I just consume the content from an audio standpoint. All right. Okay, so the last thing I want to leave you with, if you don't have any more questions, we had some really good questions today. This was really fun. This is an experiment, and if you liked this, please let me know because I'll continue to do it. If you didn't like it, that's okay too. You can tell me. So I've been experimenting with some other ideas for how to grow my podcast. And I had this idea. I actually had 2 ideas, and I want to see what you guys think of this. One was a limited release series. So where you're putting out a podcast, a series of podcast episodes that dissolve, they go away. So it's similar to like a story on Instagram, but you could tell people like, I'm doing a series on blah, 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 and it's going to be 5 episodes, and it's going to be on from September 1st to September 30th. And I'm wondering if that will create more of an urgency to watch those episodes. Listen to the episodes. I also do video for my episodes. So I'm curious what you think about, would you be turned off from a podcast that did a limited series? Because I think that podcasting is growing fast and we constantly have to be thinking of like the next thing. If we're just copying the last thing, then we're like already behind. But if we're starting the new thing, and I've seen a couple limited release podcasts on Spotify where they're like, this is going to be out from this to this, and then it goes away. And it really makes me think like, I better listen to this. I better consume this more than other podcasts. Okay. Secondarily, I've been thinking about the idea of what I'm calling right now a double cast. So I'm going to have a guest on and I'm going to interview them. But I'm also, before the interview, going to say, let's do this. Let's do an interview. And then, so I'll interview you and then we'll stop and then you interview me. Okay. Or I just interview them and break the episode into 2 pieces. And what I'm going to do is put some post-production stuff in the middle portion where it says like, to hear the rest of this episode, go to this person's podcast and listen to it. So the person starts their adventure on your podcast. And if they want to hear the rest of the content, they go to the other person's podcast to finish it. Now, or the second part. So like if I interview them and then they interview me, sort of the thought process is it's an automatic way to get your guests to participate with you and collaborate with you, but also share you on their show. So instead of just doing an interview with one person and then putting it out, creating an episode that's 2 parts that goes in 2 different places. Let me know if that makes sense, because it makes sense in my head, but when I say it out loud, I start to feel a little bit insecure about it. All right, well, I'm going to keep working on the double cast. I'm going to keep working on that, and I'll let you know how it goes. We got a couple minutes left here, and I just want to know, like, what are you guys excited about right now? Can you tell me what you're excited about? I'm excited because we're launching a Poddex app, and this has been an incredible amount of work and heart and soul and blood and sweat and tears and keyboard strokes and revisions and designers and developers and questions that I've curated. And I'm just so excited to get Poddex on your phone. If you do own Poddex, you're going to be able to unlock your physical decks for free in the app. You're just going to put in your email address and it's going to unlock all your physicals for you. So the physical decks will not be in the app. They will be exclusive to the people who purchase them in real life, because I like to reward people for being a part of my life. And I appreciate everybody who's purchased Poddex. I hope that they've helped you. And it's good stuff. So what are you excited about? What are you doing this weekend? What did you have for lunch? Let's see what you guys got. Tell me something about you. I want to know more about you. I'm excited for the interview series with special guests on our show. Awesome. What kind of special guests you got? The app looks awesome. Can't wait to get it. Thank you, John. If you haven't seen it, there's an app preview on my YouTube channel, so you can see. I'll walk you through all the features. There's way more than just decks in there. There's mini courses. There's exclusive giveaways. We're giving away a Rodecaster Pro the first month. There are member discounts that you get on all of my favorite podcasting tools. It's coming out on September 30th. But if you're on my email list, you're going to get a very special founder offer. So you're going to make sure you're on the list. Just go to poddex.com. Wife made French toast for lunch. Did she put the sugar stuff on it? You know, like the little sprinkles of sugar and syrup. Writers, voice actors, and TV series creators. That's awesome. I'm really happy for you, Ryan. That sounds like you're doing some really cool stuff. I really love the nerd aspect. I would lean into it. There's actually a guy you should check out called Nerd Fitness. So he started a fitness company that's called Nerd Fitness, but I bet you could steal some ideas from that, from his marketing, from his visuals and stuff like that. I'm a big fan of this. Don't compare yourself to anybody, but look at other people and see what they're doing and it's working and apply those things to you. Okay. There's nothing wrong. Like all art, everything is based off of what came before it. Okay. Very few things are innovated. And if you compare yourself to somebody else, you're going to feel like crap. But if you just look at them and go like, at one point in time, they were where I am now, and I'm going to see what they're doing. They're helping me get further. It's a great way to have a good mindset about podcasting. I'm a biker and I love to record my rides. I'm also a professional photographer in Houston. That's awesome. I've been following you on Instagram, Rome, and I'm presuming you're a motorcyclist. Is that a word? Because I ride bikes, but not motorcycles. But biker, I guess, is probably the term. That's awesome. What kind of bike do you have? I know nothing about motorcycles, but I want to learn. Finishing up some branding ideas for my future fan club community. Excuse me. That's awesome. Oh, Poddit. Yes. Dude, Poddit rules. Poddit is a great company that connects you with other people to have on your podcast or to be on their podcast. They actually have a free account where you can get like, I think 4 interviews a month or something. Very cool. The guy, Brent, who started it is a really great guy. And they are a small startup that is going to be a very big thing. All right. Ryan's excited for Power Rangers Day tonight. Okay. That's cool. Rome is interviewing people in Houston that are helping the homeless. I love that. All right. Garland is psyched to continue brainstorming through the weekend. Yeah. You're doing a great job, man. We're going to make the biggest WWE podcast that anybody's ever made. Let's see. Nigel's getting his hair done. I like that. You're currently getting your hair slayed and you're going to ride your motorbike. Awesome. I like the hair in the picture. Don't go too crazy cutting it off. All right. This is like speaking Japanese to me. Hayabusa 1300cc. I know what that means. And an M10 9R 1800cc. Let's ride. I love it. Well, again, thank you so much for joining me today. If you'd like me to do this again, please let me know. Send me an email, send me a DM, say, let's do this again. I'd like to start bringing people on and like Mike said, going through your podcast as an audit, if that's something you'd like to do. And if I can help you in any way with podcasting, please let me know. If you have any questions, if you have things that you're thinking about, things you need help with, work you need, please let me know. Have an amazing weekend. I'm going to get back to work here. I got to finish up some stuff for the app today. And this has been a great time. So grateful that you're all here with me. And I will talk to you all in the next office hours or on my podcast or on my YouTube channel or on my Instagram account, or I think my phone number is on the website in real life.